Can you be practicing Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune and not know it? Maybe. So find out today in MA Talk. Hey everybody, my name is Gio Perez and I'm here with Steven Reich, and today we're going to be discussing Jeet Kune. Can you be practicing and not even know it? I know that Jeet Kune was developed in the late 60s by the late Bruce Lee, and I know from there a lot of martial arts teachers have actually read the book and they have implemented Jeet Kune concepts within their same practice of martial arts. I mean, can you be practicing? I mean, do you believe that you might be practicing some of those concepts, Steve?
Yes. At a certain point in your training, yes. Right. I do believe that at some point, Jeet Kune concepts do come into play if your goal is to be an effective martial artist.
Right.
You know, I don't think you can really get to your maximum effectiveness without it. I think that at some point, the concept of using what is useful for you and discarding what is useless does come into play.
Yes. Jeet Kune, translated to the way of the intercepting fist or foot. I know that when you're practicing boxing, karate, you're doing like full contact martial arts. Yeah, those the concepts come in very handy. And I know most of you probably haven't read the book. I had a chance to be able to read the book, and then you see a lot of concepts from boxing. I mean, you see a lot of boxing concepts in there. I know Bruce Lee was a great fan of Muhammad Ali. So you see some of the way, like some of the boxing moves that he implemented from his practice of Wing Chun that he was practicing before. So you'll see that. And I think in martial arts, what Steve was saying, I know even Bruce Lee had some of the students that became champion that were influenced by those concepts, like by the Jeet Kune concept. I think one of those guys was Joe Louis, right? Joe Louis practiced with Bruce Lee. Chuck Norris also got a chance to practice with Bruce Lee. And Bruce Lee got a chance to practice with Chuck Norris and also interchange information there. So I think a lot of those concepts comes from that. Not only from that, but from his own experience of real combat and how to be able to become better within his art.
Like in the form of an overall strategy for
a strategy of how to be able to. I mean, I remember one of the things he would talk about is that he had a very famous fight with another kung fu master, and he thought that the fight lasted too long. He said that the fight should last the maximum 30 seconds.
Right. He won, but it was too long.
Yeah, it was too long. It took forever because, what he called was, martial art mass, right? Because you're using so many techniques, to accomplish a certain point where you should just cut those techniques and be able to finish that fight right away. So intercepting fist, what does that mean? I mean, it means movement. It means that you're able to be able to counter that, like a counter attack, be a very good counter attacker.
It's kind of the art of the counter.
Yeah, the art of counter.
Art of counter attacking.
Yeah, and some of the best boxers you see, what are they? They're counter attack boxers.
Right. I mean, I remember in my training when I was in Taekwondo, they talked a lot about how once somebody commits to a technique at you, they're at their most vulnerable because they committed. They can't change it in mid execution. So that the best thing you can do is counter into that, is work with that commitment,
Right. Yeah. So what you're talking about is if somebody's coming in with a kick or a punch, they're committing to the technique. But once you do that, this is open here. So you just have to find a way to be able to get this before he comes into you. Yeah.
While they're in the middle of that,
Right.
of throwing that punch,
Right.
they're open for that shot. I
Right.
mean, once they finish throwing the punch, then they can do another technique. But while they're in the middle of, the punch has to come first.
Right.
So you have them at that. If you can time it right, you can get them while they're throwing that punch.
Right. I mean, and then you see it. I mean, you see it in a lot of full contact fights. You see it in kickboxing. You see it in MMA. You know, that you see all these guys countering now. So all those concepts come into play. And then I know when it comes to MMA, these guys, recognize Bruce Lee as being like the grandfather of MMA, right? Because of his concepts. I got a chance to be able to practice JEET Kune at a school in Reseda, California. The school, the name of the school was Magda Institute. I got to practice there, I think maybe a few times. And I mean, I went there because I had read the book. I wanted to learn the concepts. But when I walked into that school and I started practicing, I saw that it was heavily influenced by Filipino martial arts.
Right. I've seen a few classes at that school.
So they were using the Kali sticks, and I was like, wait, I don't remember, this coming into play. But then if you think about it, one of the persons that was practicing with Bruce Lee at that time was Dan Inosanto.
Right.
Yeah,
who I think became the lead authority on JEET Kune
right.
after he passed.
And he still, and then he was, even at the time before he died, he's a very quick guy. He's really fast at what he was doing.
Right.
The way he was teaching, the concepts, but he was more into, he was talking about the concepts, but within his martial art, which was Kali, I think it was Dose
Right.
Pares,
Well, he's teaching the martial arts that he knows.
Right.
That's the beauty of JEET Kune is that you can apply it to any fighting style. It's a concept.
Right.
It's something, which is what I'm getting at, which is why you might be training JEET Kune right now and not even realize it because you're just trying to be more effective. Right. You've been training a while, you're an advanced student, and you're realizing that certain techniques may not be working as well as others for you. Right. And you want to be effective 100% of the time. So by applying JEET, if you take what Bruce Lee was saying and saying like, look, discard what was useless. That technique in that instance that isn't working for you. Well, what if you replaced it with this other one that you can do that's more effective? Now you increase your effectiveness as a fighter. And if you just practice that over and over again, you will bring out the best effective fighter you can be.
Right. And then there is going to be a point, I think, as a student that you're going to have a hard time on some of the techniques that you might be learning now, because some of those techniques are worthless. Like in some arts, some of those techniques will not work. Maybe not for you, maybe for somebody else, because we're all made different. Like some person could actually kick really high, but another person's not able to kick that high. So you got to adapt to each kick, each punch. So maybe some of those techniques might work for somebody, but they might not work for you. So what he was saying is you got to stay with what works with you two, and that's important too.
Right. But you have to get to a point, because when everybody starts from knowing nothing. Right. And you don't know what you know or don't know yet. Your body's adjusting to martial arts, but after many years of training, if certain things that don't adapt over time, you might be, it might be a limitation you have to live with. Right. But you won't know that until you get to a certain level of your training. Right. And I think it's at that level where you start thinking JEET Kune concepts, instinctively.
Yeah. And I think that's what happened to Bruce Lee. If you think about it, Bruce Lee died at 32. So he's been practicing for a long time. But when he got into certain fights or a fight that lasted too long, that's when that came into play, that he was able to, kind of start breaking down those techniques and being able to be a more effective fighter.
Right. He always talked about, staying within one style also it boxes you into that. You start using, look, some styles have like 1-step sparring, 3-step sparring, and some techniques work great in that controlled fighting context, but, you know, the world isn't like that. You know, I mean, look, it's very respectable if you're a martial artist who wants to learn every technique in the curriculum and build themselves up over the years to be the highest level in that system. Right. If you want to be an effective fighter, you know, you got to think outside of the box. And that's where the Jeet Kune Do concepts.
Yeah. I mean, and having these different arsenals to be able to take over your opponent. Yeah. You know, you want to, you know, you don't want to be the same, like he's talking about. You don't want to be the same, but I mean, if you're fighting somebody, you want to have other weapons to be able to just get it over with right away. I mean, if somebody's just kicking and you want to eliminate that, you don't want to kick. I mean, I'm going to learn jiu-jitsu, just take him to the ground and he doesn't know anything, you know, and then I'm able to overtake that fight. But now that's why you see a lot of guys practicing now. You're practicing so many things, so many ways to get out, so many ways to punch, and you have to be able to adapt to every fighter. I mean, I think even if you're practicing, let's say, just jiu-jitsu itself, but you don't know any boxing or anything, I mean, if you get caught up with a really good boxer and he punches you, you've never felt that before, trust me, you're gonna think twice before trying to get somebody that's a really good boxer. You know? So you have to know how to be able to adapt to every situation, every fighter, and that's what Jeet Kune Do is, being able to you know, intercept everything that's coming to you. I mean, one of the things he talked about was be like water, right? So that's what he's saying. He's saying to adapt, become. If that person is becoming a certain way, then adapt to what he's doing to be able to surround them. So you're not able so he's not able to grasp a hold of your technique. You know, and that's what he's talking about. So what do you think, guys? You think you're practicing Jeet Kune Do? You know, if you haven't read the book, you know, grab a hold of it, look for it, find it online.
Right. Or there's a lot of great videos out there now too.
Right. And, you know, take a look at the concepts they have. If you haven't heard from them, maybe it'll help you in your martial art practice. So with that, I want to thank you for staying tuned with LAMA Talk and talking about Jeet Kune Do. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and don't forget to hit that bell. You could find us at LAMA Talk with Gio Perez, or you can find me at LAMArtialArt@gmail.com. Where can they find you, Steve?
You can find me at Lakewater Productions on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Thank you so much, guys. Have a great day and keep kicking.